So this is to introduce you to the sequel to The House of God. So after you wrote the novel House of God, which got super famous, which made you super famous, I'm sure a lot of people have asked you to come and give a talk. Could you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Well, actually, Baruch, I wasn't famous.
You were not.
Nobody could find me because I took a pen name and the publisher would not give out my address. I decided I wouldn't do any appearances because I didn't think that was right for an author to do somehow. And there were very few reviews. The New York Times was on strike when it came out, so it was never reviewed. So I didn't do anything.
Was there any reason why you did not want to give a talk?
You know, real writers don't go out publicizing themselves. I didn't want to be famous. I'd written my book. I knew it was true and real and our experience. I had no doubts about it. In fact, I thought everybody was going to love it. And to my surprise, of course, a lot of people hated it, the older generation. And then about 2 years after it came out, I got this letter through my publisher that said, from a doctor, said, I'm on call in a VA hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and if it weren't for your book, I'd kill myself. And I thought, whoa, maybe this is important. Maybe this is capturing something for doctors going through the same experience that might help keep somebody alive. And so I felt a real deep sense of responsibility. I had to get out there and talk about the book, my experience, and not only about the inhumanity, but how to stay human in medicine. What I learned over the years from talking and listening was that staying human has to do with the danger of isolation and the healing power of good connection, period.
The reason why you wrote The House of God, you were presenting problems. Would it be reasonable to assume that the reason for writing this sequel to The House of God is to present solutions to the problem? Is
to show the problems in fiction and then show the solutions. The fat man is the major character in this book, once again. And at one point in this book, he's brought in to this hospital that has fallen from man's best hospital to man's fourth best hospital in the U.S. News and World Report ratings. And they call the fat man because he's rich and famous. And so the story of the book, what the book's about, is the fat man gathers together members of his team from the House of God, Roy, Barry, Eat My Dust, Hyper Hooper, The Runt, and Chuck. He gets to do anything he wants to do, and what he wants to do is to have a public clinic leaning up against this huge hospital. It's called the Future of Medicine Clinic, or like the Fat Man Clinic, the FMC. And what his goal is, and what the purpose of the book, in a way, is to put the human back into medicine. To put the human back into medicine. And it's a story of how he tries to do that. And one of the things, midway through the book, is he gives a lecture in chalk on a blackboard about the 6 rackets of American healthcare. And follow the money. And then at the end, he offers solutions, which I will not...
What are the solutions?
Buy the book. To write this lecture on the 6 rackets of American healthcare, trying to see the 6 interlocking huge things, like insurance, like the medical record, right? All of that stuff. It took me a month to figure this out.
You have a lot of fans, and you also said that you had a lot of people that hated you.
Yeah.
Now, by writing this book, are you worried about being hated on by the EMR companies?
I'm hoping.
I'm
hoping to be hated. The electronic medical record in man's fourth best hospital is called HEAL, H-E-A-L. One of the things I've learned in my life is that, and I learned it partly from the House of God and the effect that it had, far beyond whatever I thought. I thought I was just writing a novel. Doctors have not used their power to get what they want out of the healthcare system. Someone once said to me about this whole situation of doctors not getting together and using their power. Have you ever heard in a crowded theater when someone falls down, the cry go out, "Is there an insurance executive in the house?" No. We are the workers. We doctors and nurses and other people in the healthcare. We are the workers. Without us, there's no healthcare. I have one major message for anybody, but especially for young doctors who are going to try to decide what to do about this. That is, remember one thing, stick together. Isolation is dangerous and connection is power. Connection is power. The thing that doctors have never done, almost never in their history in this country, is to stick together, to form a group, and to use the power they have to get what we want. I have to say that this book is very similar to The House of God. It's the same tone. It rides on humor, not as much sex, but it rides on humor. As Dr. Sanjay Gupta said in one of the reviews so far, he said you'll get pissed off some, you'll laugh out loud, and you may even shed some tears. It's a book that can stand as a valuable and co-sequel to The House of God. I mean, I think I've really done what I wanted to do in this book. We doctors at the Fat Man Clinic had to attend a day-long orientation to heal man's fourth best electronic medical record. An hour-long video and a workshop with a guy named Bob. The goal was, by gaming the HEAL code for any particular diagnosis and treatment, to max out money. In principle, we could max out with clicks in two ways. First was qualitative, choosing the worst diagnosis and the most treatment. Second was quantitative, clicking on as many different severe diagnoses, requiring the most elaborate treatment for as long as possible. The terms he used to hide this gaming of the system were exacting and unintelligible. Algorithmic meaningful use monetizations, protocolizations of chain-link treatment, high product gritzel throughput, etc. Bob made clear that the more expensive the diagnosis and therapy codes clicked, the more money the fourth best hospital made. And he warned us that the insurance industry is 24/7 trying just as hard on the war across the other side of the screen to game us out of our gaming them for cash. That's why, Bob said, we nicknamed our team Coders for Cash. We work out of a war room at an undisclosed location, 335 in the billing building. We watch each of you for your choice of click codes from admission to discharge. Fiscally, doing procedures on patients makes the most money. Surgical procedures make the most money. Medical care makes the least. Except for the diagnosis of sepsis, severe. After you click sepsis, the pop-ups ask mild, medium, or hot, severe, like at a Thai restaurant. But sepsis is by definition a life-threatening blood infection, always severe. Monetized compared to mild or medium, severe is a cash cow that wins hands down. We will dog you till the sun goes down. If you click sepsis, you always click severe, the code for cash. But then why, I asked, do you have boxes for mild and medium at all? Camouflage. For this fatal disease, we have no choice Hippocratically but to click severe. He went on. I tuned out but caught his summary. It all boils down to earwax. He spoke passionately about how to squeeze the most money out of earwax. First, in a moving historical tour, he said, earwax is an untapped pool, rampant in our senior citizens, a cause of deafness. How many of you routine earwax your patients? We took this as rhetorical and did not reply. The money in earwax flows by clicking the diagnosis in almost all patients and removing as much volume as you can. Bob then showed on the big screen the stick figure of a doctor sitting at healing. You have to choose between two codes for earwax removal. 40773 is for just taking a syringe and washing it out, reimbursed at $77.33. But 40774, using the metal scooper thingy to remove it, $182.57. The difference, $105.24. And doing both, $359.90, more than the sum of the parts. Multiply per person per year, millions. Guess which procedure for extraction and payment is max quiddity? Both. Do the right thing. The right thing for us of the FMC was to walk out. So, Chuck, I said, what'd you think of that? Man, it all went in one ear and out the other.
So do you have to have read The House of God to be able to understand the sequel to The House of God?
If you haven't read The House of God. So you don't have to have read The House of God to understand it. The old refugees from the House of God are explained. The laws of the House of God are explained, some of them. And because it's the same narrator, he can refer to the House of God because it's a real book in his world, as in our world, right? Mm-hmm. So he talks about the House of God in Man's Fourth Best Hospital. It's cool. You don't need to have read the House of God. You get a wonderful idea of a progression of the characters, of all of the main characters, that I got criticized because there were no really wonderful women characters in the healthcare industry in the House of God. But now I have the news that the Fat Man makes a point of adding to the Fat Man Clinic, by the end of the book, just enough women to have parity. So I'm very happy about that.
Why don't you read us a page that catches the essence of the book?
Your visit to your doctor has become satire. You walk in, lucky if you get eye contact, and sit across the desk. Your doctor is trapped, hunched behind a computer screen, back or shoulder to you. The doc asks a question, you answer. The keyboard goes click, click-de-click, faster and faster. On and on it goes, and you find yourself in the patient's dilemma. Do I keep talking or wait for a break in the action? Usually the next question. Is he or she still listening or not? The new definition of, quote, a good doctor, one who can contort his or her body to touch type while still making eye contact. As you keep waiting, two questions may enter your mind as a patient. What is she or he doing? What you don't know is that your doctor is sitting there in front of that screen seething because he is forced to sit in front of a screen seething instead of what he wants to do, to talk and listen and be your doctor. He spends 60% of every workday, at least 6 hours, in front of that screen. Family doctors spend an additional 3 hours at night at home during pajama time digging out from under the pileup in the screen. This is the doctor's dilemma. Why is he or she doing this? You might think she's doing this because it will be better for your health care. It may not be. It may even be worse. Worse for your care and for sure worse for the care of your doctor. It's only better for the money, the healthcare industry. The machine, you see, was not primarily designed for care, but for billing, to make as much money as possible. We doctors are caught in this mess. We're not only treating the patient, we're treating the screen. And it's not that your doctor wants to turn his or her back on you. It's the healthcare industry that has turned its back on both you and your doctor.
Is there anything that you want to say to medical students, medical residents, or fellows?
Yes, there is, and I've been saying this every time I talk to those groups. The most important thing in your training is to stick together, not to get isolated from each other. The dangers of isolation are obvious. They were obvious in the House of God. But other thing, and when I say stick together, I mean we not only have to learn our trade and learn our trade in the world that's in a lot of trouble because of climate change. We have to learn our trade, but we have to stick up for our humanness. We are finding it very difficult to be human in medicine. People call this burnout now, but that's actually not the right term. It sounds like we're the tinder for a fire, and the fire is the healthcare system. It's not burnout. Burnout is really abuse. We doctors are being abused by the healthcare system. And one of the papers I read recently, which is a terrific paper, said it's not to be called burnout. It's putting doctors in a moral position where they can't do medicine the way we want to do it. It's a moral thing. It's almost like being in a war and having, your morality challenged as if you don't believe in fighting that war. So what I would say basically is stick together and recognize that it is not your defect or fault when they talk about burnout. And we, for the first time in America, in American history really, have to stick together. We are the workers. We have power. We have to stick together when any new healthcare system comes along. Why man's fourth?
Why not third or first?
Why not what?
Why not first, second, or third?
Well, it was man in the novel. It was man's best hospital for many, many, many years, and then some things happened that were really stupid that people did, and it started to go down. So that in the novel, I invented this. It used to be man's best hospital was number one. Now, as it says in the book, the order in U.S. News and World Report is number one is Stanford Hospital. Number two is NYU Hospital. And then there's number four, which is man's fourth best hospital, which is sort of okay to the people in the book, but it's not okay because number three is the house of God.
Hospital. Do you have to put the dollar sign? When you try to pre-order on Amazon, do you have to put the dollar sign?
Well, you will notice that.
Some people may struggle with that, Well, you got to make it clear for the audience.
Well, the cover, he's talking about the cover for the book, which has man's best hospital, and the S in hospital is a dollar sign because, as I said, it's about money and it's about screens, the electronic medical record screens, which means money and money.
So doctors are expected to stay strong. How strong can you be,
It's very simple, but very hard for doctors to do. Stick together. Don't get isolated from each other or from your loved ones or the world. We have power if we stick together. Doctors are very bad at sticking together. We're very individualistic kinds of people. We have to be a political force to get what we want in this situation where non-doctors are running healthcare. And it is really hurting our wish to keep the human in healthcare. The only way to keep the humane and the humanity in our healthcare system is for us to stand up for it with patients who want it, with hospitals who want it, with nurses and other healthcare workers who want it. Nurses are very, very successful in getting what they want because they have a union. They almost never have lost a case for themselves. So stick together. Connection is what will get us through.